What if I told you a slice of bread once carried the weight of survival? These were the sandwiches built from scraps, the ones your grandparents didn't eat for luxury. They ate to get through another day. In this video, we're uncovering 25 poor man sandwiches that fed America through its hardest times. Every sandwich tells a story of strength, sacrifice, and making do with what you had. Stick around, because by the end, you'll not only remember these sandwiches, you'll remember the people that you love who made them. 1. Onion sandwich. Long ago, when people didn't have much food, they made sandwiches with just bread and onions. They would slice the onion, put it between two pieces of bread, and eat it like that. Sometimes they added butter if they had some, but many times it was just plain. The onion was strong and made your eyes water, but it helped fill your belly. People ate it because it was cheap, easy, and gave them energy. This sandwich didn't taste sweet or fancy. It tasted sharp and made your mouth feel hot, but it kept you full. Workers took it with them to farms and factories. They didn't complain because it was better than having nothing at all. It helped them stay strong through hard days. Families would sit at the table and eat these together, even if it was all they had. It showed they still cared and shared what little they could. That onion sandwich was made with love and hard work. It reminded them to be thankful even when times were rough. It was a small meal with a big heart, and some people still remember it today with a smile. It may have been simple, but it meant a lot. It told a story of hard times, strong people, and never giving up. 2. Spaghetti sandwich. When dinner ended and there was extra spaghetti, nobody let it go to waste. People would pile leftover spaghetti between two slices of bread for a quick meal. Sometimes they'd add a little sauce or cheese if it was around. It was soft, saucy, and filled your belly when there wasn't much else. It may sound messy, but it was warm comfort and made a full meal. Kids loved this because it tasted like dinner again and felt like a treat. Parents packed it in lunchboxes or served it at picnics. No dishes, no fuss, just bread and spaghetti making magic. It showed families how smart they were with leftovers, turning yesterday's meal into today's delight. This sandwich saved food, time, and money, all in one bite. Spaghetti sandwiches weren't fancy dishes. They were survival food with flavor. They made hard times feel a little easier with every forkful nestled into warm bread. Some folks even toasted the bread to make the edges crisp. But plain or toasty, it still tasted like home. It was a humble sandwich with a big story. Today, most people don't think to try it, but some grandparents still smile at the memory. Bread, noodles, and sauce might not be common now, but for those who grew up with it, it was table-graced love. It taught us to use what we had and find joy in every meal. 3. Lard and sugar sandwich. A long time ago, people did not always have butter or fancy spreads, so they used lard, which is like fat from a pig, and spread it on bread. Then they sprinkled sugar on top to make it sweet. It was easy, cheap, and gave people energy to work hard. Kids thought it was a treat because it tasted like dessert. Families didn't have candy or snacks like we do now, so this was something special. Moms would make it when there was nothing else in the house. It filled tummies and made people feel full, even if it was simple. The sugar made it fun to eat, and the lard helped people feel strong. It was a way to make the best of what they had. People back then didn't waste anything. If they had bread and lard, they made a sandwich. And if there was sugar in the jar, that made it even better. It might sound strange now, but back then it was smart and tasty. Some people still remember it and smile because it reminds them of their childhood. It was sweet, homemade, and filled with memories. Even with very little, people found ways to enjoy the small things. 4. Baked bean sandwich. Back in the day, a can of baked beans could go a long way. People would scoop some warm beans onto a slice of bread, add another slice on top, and call it lunch. It was soft, messy, and full of flavor that made you feel full fast. Families used this sandwich when there was no money for meat. Beans gave people protein and kept their bellies happy. Some added ketchup or onions to give it more taste, but many just ate it plain. It was a favorite for working folks who needed something fast and filling. Kids liked how sweet and gooey it was, even if it was a little sloppy. You could eat it hot or cold, and it always hit the spot. Even today, some people still make it when they want a meal that reminds them of home. It may not be fancy, but it's full of heart and history. That sandwich told people they were doing okay, even when life was tough. It was warm, simple, and made with care. A sandwich that filled more than just your belly. It filled your soul too. It tasted like home after a long day. And sometimes that's all you really needed. Just bread, beans, and the feeling that everything would be all right. That little sandwich made tough times feel just a bit softer. 5. Mashed potato sandwich. When leftovers were all you had, mashed potatoes came to the rescue. People would spread cold or warm mashed potatoes between 2 slices of bread and eat it as a full meal. Sometimes they added salt, pepper, or even a little gravy if there was any left. It was soft, heavy, and filled you up fast without needing meat. For many families, it was the best way to stretch food and not waste a thing. Moms would make extra potatoes at dinner just so there'd be enough for sandwiches the next day. It was a smart way to save money and keep everyone fed. Some folks even added onions or pickles to give it a little crunch and flavor. But even plain, it was warm and comforting, like a hug in your lunchbox. Kids and grown-ups alike ate it with a smile, happy to have something in their stomachs. People still remember it today, thinking of the laughter and stories at the kitchen table. It was a sandwich that said, "We're getting by," even when times were tough, and somehow it always tasted better when shared with someone you loved. Just 2 slices of bread and a scoop of mashed potatoes could bring people closer. Because even the simplest meals can make the best memories. 6. Lettuce and mayonnaise sandwich. Sometimes all people had was a leaf of lettuce and a spoonful of mayo. They would spread the mayonnaise on bread, lay down the lettuce, and call it lunch. It was crunchy, creamy, and just enough to keep you going. It didn't cost much and used whatever was left in the kitchen. People ate it with pride, even if it wasn't fancy. Kids would sometimes squish the bread together to make it feel like a real sandwich. It wasn't meat, but it felt like something when times were hard. Moms packed it in lunchboxes or served it with a small bowl of soup. It filled the tummy and gave a little joy on a tough day. Some people even liked it better than sandwiches with meat. This sandwich was popular during the Great Depression and wartime. It reminded folks that even the little things could still be tasty. Lettuce was cheap and easy to grow, and mayo lasted a long time in the fridge. That's why this sandwich stuck around for so long. It was light, simple, and full of memory. Even now, some grandparents make it just for fun. They remember sitting on the porch with this sandwich and a glass of sweet tea. It may not be popular today, but it's still loved in old stories and quiet kitchens. A little lettuce, a little mayo, and a lot of heart. It's a sandwich that whispers, "We made it through." 7. Cold grits sandwich. Back when food had to last, nothing went to waste, not even cold grits. People would take leftover grits, spread them on bread, and eat them just like that. Sometimes they added a little butter or syrup if they had some. It was sticky, heavy, and filled your belly for the whole day. It might sound odd now, but it helped families stay strong when money was tight. Grits were cheap and easy to cook in big batches. When they got cold, they turned thick like pudding and were perfect for sandwiches. Kids didn't always love it, but they learned to eat what was there. Some folks even fried the cold grits first to make it crispy on the edges. That gave the sandwich a nice crunch and made it feel like something special. Cold grits with bread was food that worked hard, just like the people who made it. It filled up tired workers and growing kids without costing much at all. It became a regular meal in kitchens across the South and beyond. Many people today don't remember this sandwich, but some still smile when they hear about it. It brings back stories of sitting at Grandma's table, wiping their hands on their overalls. It was warm even when served cold, because it came with love. A cold grit sandwich may not be pretty, but it meant you still had something to eat. And that meant everything back then. 8. Tomato and sugar sandwich. This sandwich was made when gardens were full, but wallets were empty. People would slice up a fresh tomato, sprinkle some sugar on top, and press it between two slices of bread. The tomato was juicy and sweet, and the sugar made it taste like a treat. It was simple, cheap, and made summer feel special. For many kids, it was the closest thing to dessert. Tomatoes were easy to grow, and every backyard had a plant or two. When money was tight, a sandwich like this was a gift. Some people added a little salt, too, mixing sweet and salty flavors. The bread would soak up the tomato juice and get soft and messy. But no one cared. They just smiled and took another bite. This sandwich wasn't fancy, but it felt like sunshine in your hand. It tasted like home, like picking tomatoes right off the vine with your grandpa. Moms made it fast, and kids ate it even faster. It was good on hot days when you didn't want to cook. Just fresh food, simple love, and a full belly. People today might think sugar on tomatoes is strange. But for folks back then, it was a small joy in hard times. It made them feel rich, even if they weren't. That little sandwich brought a lot of happiness with just a tomato, sugar, and a slice of bread. And for some, it still does. 9. Mustard and onion sandwich. When food was low, folks got creative with what they had in the cupboard. One simple sandwich was made with just mustard and sliced onions on bread. The mustard was tangy, the onion was strong, and the flavor hit hard. It wasn't for everyone, but it sure made you feel full. This sandwich was loud in taste and small in price. Workers packed it in their lunch pails before heading off to long days in the fields or factories. It gave them the fuel they needed, even if their mouths were burning a little. Some added a bit of salt, others used leftover hot dog buns. It wasn't pretty, but it did the job. That sharp bite reminded people they were alive and still moving. This was a sandwich for tough times and tough people. It showed how folks used whatever they could find to make a meal. Bread, onions, and mustard could turn into something real, something that kept you going. It wasn't about taste, it was about survival. And sometimes it actually tasted better than you'd think. Even now, some older folks laugh when they remember eating it as kids. They didn't always like it then, but now it brings back memories of strong moms and hard days. It wasn't a sandwich made with money. It was made with grit, just bread, mustard, and a whole lot of strength. And that's something to be proud of. 10. Ketchup Sandwich. When the fridge was nearly empty, ketchup became the star of the meal. People would squeeze it onto a slice of bread, spread it around, and top it with another slice. That was it. A ketchup sandwich, sweet, tangy, and just enough to keep you going. It was a kid's favorite sometimes, even when there wasn't much else to eat. It felt fun and silly, like a treat during hard times. Ketchup was cheap and lasted a long time, which made it a go-to item for struggling families. It added flavor when meat and cheese were too expensive. Some folks toasted the bread or added a little pepper to change it up. Moms got creative and kids learned to enjoy what they had. Even with no lunch meat, it still felt like lunch. This sandwich was a symbol of making the best out of almost nothing. It showed that even when times were rough, a little red squeeze could bring a smile. It wasn't filling for long, but it gave hope. It reminded families that they could stretch one bottle for many meals, and somehow it tasted better when shared. People today may laugh at it, but those who ate it remember how it kept them fed. It meant no one went hungry, even if the meal was small. A ketchup sandwich didn't need anything fancy, it just needed a little heart. Bread and ketchup, plain and proud. And that was enough to get through another day. 11th. Corned beef hash sandwich. In tough times, nothing got tossed, even leftovers mattered. People took corned beef hash, leftover diced beef and potatoes, pan-fried it until hot, then put it on bread for a sandwich. It was warm, salty, and easy to make with what was left in the fridge. The crispy edges made it tasty, and the soft insides made it filling. A savory meal without spending extra money. Families made enough hash at dinner so there'd be extra for lunch. It gave good protein and power to help with hard work. Kids often added ketchup or onions to make it more fun. It wasn't fancy, but it felt like something real for their midday break. You could taste yesterday's dinner, but better on bread. This sandwich showed how smart people were with food. They took what was already there and turned it into a full meal. It was a reminder that nothing had to go to waste. Warm bread and savory hash made an old meal feel brand new. and it brought families together around the kitchen table. Some still remember eating this after a cold day's work. They say it warmed both body and heart. That corned beef hash sandwich was more than food. It was memory. It carried strength from one generation to the next, one bite at a time. 12th, Bologna and butter sandwich. Back in the day, Bologna was one of the cheapest meats you could buy. People would spread butter on soft white bread, lay a slice or two of Bologna, and make a sandwich. It was simple, quick, and just enough to feel full. The butter made the bread soft and creamy, while the Bologna added that salty bite. It became a lunchbox classic for kids and grown-ups alike. Families could get a whole pack of Bologna for just a little money. That meant enough sandwiches for everyone at home. Some folks fried the Bologna to give it crispy edges and extra flavor. Others just ate it cold, straight from the fridge. Either way, it tasted like comfort during hard times. This sandwich didn't try to be fancy. It was real food for real people. It filled empty stomachs and reminded everyone that small things could still bring joy. The sound of the wrapper opening meant lunchtime had arrived. Even if you only had one slice, it felt like enough. It was a sandwich made of heart, not dollars. Grandparents still talk about it like it was a treat. And some folks today still make it when they want to remember those old days. Butter, bread, and Bologna might seem plain, but they tell a rich story. A story of hard work, simple joys, and always making do. That sandwich meant you were okay. 13, butter and sugar sandwich. When money was tight and sweets were rare, this sandwich felt like dessert. People would spread butter on soft white bread and sprinkle sugar on top before folding it closed. The butter melted a little, and the sugar gave it a sweet crunch. It was cheap, fast, and tasted like a special treat. For many kids, it was their favorite part of the day. Moms made it when there wasn't anything else to put on bread. Just a few spoonfuls of sugar and some butter could turn nothing into something good. It filled little bellies and made children smile. Some even added cinnamon if they had it, turning it into a warm, spicy snack. It felt like love in every bite. This sandwich was never about being fancy. It was about making do. It showed how parents turned plain food into something joyful. On quiet afternoons, this sandwich was enough to bring a bit of sunshine. It made kids feel full, happy, and cared for. That little bit of sugar meant a whole lot. Even now, older folks talk about it like it was a secret treat. Some still make it when they want to feel like a kid again. It reminds them of old kitchens, family talks, and tough days made better by simple things. Just bread, butter, and sugar, but full of heart. A poor man's dessert that fed the soul. 14th, lard and salt sandwich. Back when butter was too expensive and oil was hard to get, folks used lard instead. They would spread the soft white fat onto bread and sprinkle a little salt on top. It was plain, but it was filling and gave energy for a long day. People didn't eat it because they loved the taste. They ate it because it kept them going. It was food you could count on when there was nothing else. Lard came from cooking pork, and every bit was saved and used. It lasted a long time and was always in the kitchen. This sandwich was fast, cheap, and didn't need anything fancy. Some folks added pepper or garlic if they had it, but most of the time it was just lard and salt, plain and true. It was a working man's lunch, eaten on the go or on a quick break. It gave strength to farmers, factory workers, and hungry kids. And even though it sounds strange now, people were thankful for every bite. It meant you had something in your belly, and sometimes that was all that mattered. Old-timers still talk about this sandwich with respect. It was tough, like the people who ate it. It may not show up in cookbooks, but it lives on in memories. Bread, lard, salt, and a whole lot of grit. That's the kind of sandwich that built generations. 15th, cold biscuit and gravy sandwich. This sandwich started from leftovers, cold biscuits from breakfast and leftover gravy, too thick to throw away. People would cut the biscuit in half, scoop in some gravy, and press it together like a sandwich. It might not have been hot, but it was still good and kept you full. It was soft, salty, and tasted like morning comfort even in the middle of the day. When money was tight, nothing went to waste, not even cold gravy. Sometimes the gravy had bits of sausage or just the drippings from meat. Even a little flavor made a big difference when you were hungry. It stuck to your ribs and gave you energy to keep working or studying. Kids didn't mind that it wasn't fresh. They loved the familiar taste. Moms packed them for lunch and dads took them to work. It was a sandwich born from smart thinking and hard times. People didn't need fancy food. They needed food that lasted and filled you up. Cold or warm, it reminded folks of breakfast around the table. It wasn't pretty, but it was real. And sometimes that's all you needed. Older folks still smile when they talk about eating this sandwich. It brings back memories of family mornings and hard-earned meals. Just biscuit and gravy, pressed together with care. A sandwich that says, "We made it through." One bite and the past comes back. 16th, Cabbage Sandwich. Cabbage was one of the cheapest vegetables you could buy, and it lasted a long time. People would cook it down with a little salt and maybe some butter, then pile it onto bread. Sometimes they ate it cold, sometimes warm, but it always made a hearty sandwich. It was soft, salty, and full of flavor. Even just cabbage and bread could fill your belly and keep you going. Farmers grew cabbage in their own gardens, and moms used every part of it. They'd boil, fry, or stew it. Whatever worked best. If there were leftovers, they became sandwiches the next day. Kids might wrinkle their noses, but they ate every bite. Because when you were hungry, even cabbage tasted good. This sandwich reminded people that simple food could still feel like a meal. It was warm and comforting, even if it didn't cost much. Some added vinegar or pepper to make it taste stronger. Others just liked it plain and soft. Either way, it brought families together around the table. Today, not many folks eat cabbage sandwiches anymore. But for those who grew up with them, it brings back memories of love and hard work. Bread, cabbage, and a little hope. That's what it was made of. A meal built from the garden and made with care. The kind of sandwich that helped folks get through anything. 17th, leftover mashed potato sandwich. When dinner was over and mashed potatoes were left in the bowl, folks didn't let them go to waste. They scooped the cold potatoes onto bread and made a sandwich. Sometimes they added a little salt or gravy if they had it. It was soft, creamy, and filled your belly fast. Even cold, it felt like comfort from the night before. Moms liked this sandwich because it was easy and cheap. Kids ate it for lunch or even breakfast the next day. The potatoes stuck to the bread and kept you full all afternoon. It might not have looked like much, but it tasted like home. Every bite felt like family. This sandwich showed how nothing in the kitchen ever got thrown out. People were smart and careful with food, using every last spoonful. Some even added onions or pickles for a little crunch, but most just kept it plain, the way they remembered it. Simple food made with love. Old folks still talk about eating this during hard times. It wasn't about what you had, it was about what you made from it. Bread and potatoes may not sound special, but they meant a lot. A sandwich made from leftovers and heart. And sometimes, that's the best kind. 18. Fried egg sandwich. When money was tight, eggs were one of the cheapest ways to get protein. People would fry an egg in a pan and slide it between two slices of bread. Sometimes they added salt, pepper, or even ketchup if they had some. The yolk might run a little, but that just made it taste better. It was warm, messy, and full of flavor. This sandwich was quick to make and filled you up fast. Parents liked it because it was cheap and easy. Kids liked it because it felt like breakfast and lunch at the same time. Sometimes it came with a slice of tomato or a little cheese. But even plain, it was good. Just a hot egg and some bread was enough. It was the kind of sandwich you made when the fridge was almost empty. It reminded families that even small things could make a big difference. The smell of a fried egg in the morning meant someone cared. It meant no one had to leave home hungry. It meant you were loved. Older folks still make it today when they want to remember their childhood. That fried egg sandwich wasn't fancy, but it felt like gold. Bread, egg, and heart. That was all you needed. And with every bite, you remembered where you came from. 19th, tomato and mayo sandwich. In the summertime, when tomatoes were big and juicy, people picked them fresh from the garden. They'd slice one up, Spread mayo on soft bread and lay the tomato slices on top. Sometimes they added salt and pepper, but often it was just that, tomato and mayo. It was cool, creamy, and tasted like sunshine. Simple and perfect on a hot day. This sandwich was a favorite when money was low but gardens were full. Moms made them fast and fed a whole family with just a few tomatoes. The bread soaked up the juice and the mayo made it smooth. Kids would eat it on the porch with juice running down their hands. It was messy, but no one minded. People loved how fresh and sweet the tomato tasted. It felt like a treat, even though it cost almost nothing. If you had fresh bread, it felt even better. But even with the old kind, it still hit the spot. It was summer in every bite. Old folks still smile when they talk about this sandwich. It reminds them of slower days, warm air, and good food made with love. Tomato and mayo, nothing fancy, just real. A sandwich from the garden, made for hearts and homes. One bite, and the past feels close again. 20. Crackling bread sandwich. Back when families raised their own pigs, they saved everything, even the fat. Cracklings were the crispy bits left after rendering lard, and people would mix them into cornbread or slap them straight onto bread. Sometimes they added a little salt or gravy if they had it. It was crunchy, greasy, and full of flavor. Just a few pieces could turn plain bread into something special. Farmers packed these sandwiches for long days in the fields. They were easy to carry and gave lots of energy. Kids would beg for the crunchy parts because they tasted like bacon. It felt like a treat, even though it came from scraps. No food ever went to waste. Crackling sandwiches filled bellies and lifted spirits. A poor man's meal with a rich man's flavor. In small country kitchens, the smell of hot cracklings brought everyone running. It was loud and sizzling, like music from the stove. Even if the rest of the meal was simple, a crackling sandwich made it special. Grandparents still talk about how good it was on a cold day. Warm bread, hot cracklings, and happy faces all around. Today, most folks buy their food in stores, and cracklings are hard to find. But those who remember know how good they tasted. It was a sandwich made from scraps, but it meant love, work, and pride. A simple snack that made life feel a little richer. 21. Cornbread and milk sandwich. Sometimes families didn't have much except old cornbread and a little milk. They would break the cornbread into pieces, pour some milk on top, and scoop it onto bread. It wasn't really a sandwich the way we think of one now, but they folded it up and ate it just like that. The bread got soft, the milk cooled it down, and the cornbread gave it a sweet, hearty bite. It was filling, cheap, and easy. People called it poor man's pudding or country sandwich. It didn't need butter, meat, or anything fancy, just what they already had in the kitchen. Some even used buttermilk or leftover gravy instead. No one complained. They were just happy to have something warm and soft to eat. It was a favorite in the South where cornbread was always around. Sometimes it was dinner, sometimes it was breakfast, but it always meant comfort. Parents made it fast when the kids were hungry. Grandmas would smile as they handed them out, knowing it came from love. The smell of warm cornbread and the splash of cold milk was a memory that stayed forever. Some kids added a little sugar on top when they could. That made it feel like dessert, even if it wasn't. Even now, some people still make it when they miss the old days. Cornbread and milk might sound strange today, but back then, it was gold. It was a sandwich made from almost nothing, yet it gave so much. Just bread, milk, and love holding it all together. 22. Cold gravy sandwich. When there were no leftovers and barely anything in the fridge, cold gravy saved the day. People would take old gravy from dinner and spread it on bread like butter. It was thick, salty, and full of flavor from the meat drippings. Sometimes it was beef gravy, sometimes chicken, or whatever was cooked the day before. It didn't matter. It made the bread taste rich. Kids didn't always like the cold part, but they ate it because it filled their bellies. The gravy made the bread soft and sticky. If the gravy had little bits of meat, that was a bonus treat. Some even toasted the bread to make it a little crispier. It was a warm memory, even when the sandwich was cold. On cold days, that gravy sandwich felt like a hug. It was soft, salty, and reminded folks of family meals around the table. People didn't throw gravy away, they saved every drop. Because they knew even the smallest thing could make a big difference. That sandwich told a story of care and not wasting anything. Now most people toss leftovers, but back then, every bit mattered. Cold gravy sandwiches may sound strange today, but they meant love, pride, and smarts. It was a way of saying, we still got this, even in hard times. And for many, that cold gravy still warms the heart. 23. Apple butter sandwich. When sugar was a luxury and fruit had to last all year, apple butter was a treat from the pantry. It was made from slow-cooked apples and spices, thick and dark like jam. Families would spread it on soft white bread for a quick, sweet meal. No meat, no cheese, just that sticky, spiced spread. It felt like a special dessert, even though it was simple. Apple butter was often made in big batches after the fall harvest. People stored jars of it in cellars to use all winter. It tasted like cinnamon and home, and one jar could last a long time. Kids would lick their fingers after eating it. It was sweet enough to feel like a gift. This sandwich was packed in school lunches and eaten after chores. Some families toasted the bread to make it warm and cozy. Others kept it soft, like a soft cake between two slices. It was a comfort food for cold days and hungry bellies, and everyone, from kids to grandparents, loved it. Even if there wasn't much else in the kitchen, a little apple butter went a long way. It reminded people of apple picking, grandma's stove, and Sunday afternoons. Today it's rare to see, but some still make their own just for the memory. That simple spread turned plain bread into something sweet and special. For families who had very little, apple butter sandwiches brought a smile. They tasted like fall, like family, and like hope. All from a fruit, some sugar, and a lot of love. 24. Radish and butter sandwich. In old farm kitchens, radishes were easy to grow and didn't cost much. Families would slice them thin and lay them on bread with a little butter or lard. The sandwich was crunchy, peppery, and just a little creamy. It might sound strange now, but back then, it was fresh and tasty. Kids ate them with soup or took them in their lunch. Radishes grew fast in backyard gardens, so there were always plenty. People liked the bite they had. It woke up your mouth. If there was no butter, folks used bacon grease instead. That gave it a rich flavor without spending a dime. It was a clever way to use what the garden gave. This sandwich was common in spring when radishes popped up early. It was a sign that warmer days were coming. People ate them at picnics or on front porches. The sandwich was plain but full of crunch. It didn't need meat or cheese to be good. Radish sandwiches taught kids how to enjoy vegetables. It was about being thankful for what you had. Even just a radish and some bread could bring joy. Today it's rare, but in some homes, the memory still lives. That little sandwich was sharp, simple, and full of pride. A garden snack turned into a meal that filled hearts and bellies alike. 25. Peanut butter and onion sandwich. This sandwich may sound strange today, but a long time ago, people really ate it. They spread peanut butter on bread, then added slices of raw onion on top. It was sweet from the peanut butter and sharp from the onion, all in one bite. People made it because those were the only foods they had, and it gave them energy. It didn't cost much and was quick to make. Some kids liked it and some didn't, but they ate it anyway because it filled their stomachs. Moms would pack it in lunchboxes or serve it after school. It kept kids full until dinner, and that was what mattered. There was no wasting food back then. If it was in the kitchen, it got eaten. Even weird combos like this became normal. This sandwich was part of life when times were tough. People didn't complain about taste. They just needed something to keep them going. And even if it sounds gross today, it helped a lot of families. It may not be fancy, but it's part of history. Some grandparents still talk about it and laugh, remembering how they used to eat it with a big glass of milk. These 25 sandwiches might seem plain today, but back then, they meant everything. They filled empty stomachs and warmed hearts during hard times. Maybe you ate some of these growing up or heard your grandparents talk about them at the kitchen table. Either way, they tell stories of love, strength, and making the most of what you had. If this trip down memory lane made you smile, go ahead and hit that like button. Subscribe for more old-school memories just like this. Be our memory keeper, keeping the memories alive by watching the next video. It's packed with even more moments only real old-timers will remember. We'll see you there.